asking, you started First News 5 years ago and we just had our 250th issue. So the first few questions about why you started First News. Jessica, Iliana and Jimmy at Oak Hill, Devontae at Downsall and Gonzalo at Berkeley Primary School want to know, what inspired you to start First News and make a newspaper just for children?
Well, I was always really interested in the news. I was very nosy as a small person. And I remember struggling really hard when I was probably about 12 years old to read an adult newspaper. And I couldn't understand why there wasn't a newspaper for children. So I vowed then that I was going to become a journalist and I was going to make my own newspaper for children when I was old enough.
Excellent. There's quite a lot of people involved. How many people does it take to make First News?
Gosh.
So that's from USAID at Berkeley Primary School.
Hi, USAID. Golly, it takes an awful lot of people because not only are there the journalists on the paper itself that are writing the paper, there's about 6 or 7 of us that get involved in that, but we have the website as well, which is the very up-to-the-minute news. But also there's the printers. There's the people that have to go and collect the paper from the printers, so all the lorry drivers that have to deliver it to all the shops all over the country, and then there's the people in the shops selling it. So many people. Do you know, it would be really interesting to add it all up actually and work out exactly how many people are involved, but literally hundreds of people.
You say that Berkeley has another question. He wants to know, how do you make news stories child-friendly?
The main thing about making the news stories child-friendly is to make sure that you can understand them, because I think a lot of the problem with the news as it's written for adults is that it assumes that you know the background to the story. You know, for instance, Libya is very much in the news at the moment, isn't it? And if you're younger, you may not know the history of what's been going on in Libya over the years. So our job is to make sure that we explain the background to the stories so that you can understand where we've got to and why what's happening in the news today is happening.
Excellent. There's quite a lot in First News, and Fiona at Berkeley would like to know who writes the articles in the different sections and how do they choose which stories to put in the paper?
Okay, well, we have specialists in different areas. Serena, who's sitting with me here, she writes the entertainment section and the animals. So she's a real expert. If you ask any question about animals, she'll know the answer. Maybe we should do that another day. Or entertainment. She's a showbiz expert. So in each of the different sections, like we have a science editor and we have a sports editor, they're all experts in their areas. So, and they choose what they think is the most interesting story that week that's happened in their subject areas.
Sonny at Davies Lane and Year 5 at George Tomlinson Primary would like to know, where do you journalists get the information about the stories from?
We get information from all sorts of places. Journalists have something called contacts, which means it's people that you know that are in important jobs that tell us things. So that might be people in the government, or it might be people working for other companies or organisations or charities, and they tell us about news stories. There are various news agencies whose jobs it is to get news out to journalists, and they have they're releasing something called a press release all the time. So as soon as something happens in the news, we get told about it, we get emails and we get phone calls to tell us about things. So all sorts of different ways, but a lot of it is people telling us things. We really like to get stories in the paper from children as well. And you know, who knows best what's going on in this area, you or me? You do. So we rely on people telling us, and we have school news in the paper every week where schools write their own news. So all sorts of different places.